So the other day, local legend Nadine Hughes reached out to me and asked me if I could make a dress for her. And I said yes, of course, because I love Nadine, always want to work with her anytime I get a chance to. And so when I met up with her, I'm going to be copying a very simple black dress that she gave me, and I'm going to be converting it into something like this for a gala that is in only 6 days. So let me show you how we're going to get this done. To make my pattern, I'm going to start with the sleeve, and my goal is to fold this exactly in half. So I'm using the inside seam as my guide to make sure it's folded in half, and then I'm laying it as flat as I possibly can, making sure that the seams along the shoulder align. Once I have it laid out just right, I've used a couple pins just to hold the layers together, and then laid a piece of paper over the top, also pinning that in a couple of places. And once I have my paper pinned in place, I then use a pencil to trace the sleeve. And now we only have half of the sleeve pattern, so now I'm going to cut that out and lay it down onto another piece of paper that I've already drawn a perfectly straight line onto. I will lay this pattern piece right up next to it and tape it onto that straight edge, trace it, and then flip it over and trace it again, and that will give me my full sleeve pattern. And then I repeated all these steps again for the main body of the dress. And my biggest advice here is just to really take your time and make sure that your garment is laying as flat as possible, because that will increase your accuracy. Okay, so now I have a traced out copy of the front and back, and because the patterns are exactly the same other than the neckline, I just copied it onto one piece of paper and marked the front and the back necklines for myself for later. And then I also made the sleeve pattern as well. This one I've gone ahead and added allowance to. We're not going to be making any changes to this, so it's ready to go. This particular piece, the body piece, that's going to fall. The body piece does not have any allowance added to it. I did make a copy of this. I'm going to add allowance to that one and save it for other projects going forward, but we'll go ahead and we'll just dice this one up since it doesn't have the allowance added. So now that the patterns are complete, it's time to cut everything, which means it's also time to start altering these patterns to suit the style that we're going for. So the biggest things I need to do is I need to separate the bodice from the skirt. So I'm just going to find the waist, draw a straight line, cut that so that they're separate pieces. And then for the back, I need to cut 2 of those because I'm going to do a zipper in the back, and this does not currently have a zipper, so I need to split it and add seam allowance for a zipper. And then for the front, since we're doing a V-neck, and I also need to account for, I'm going to do, I think a 2-inch trim. I want it to be a pretty bold size trim. So I think I'm going to do a 2-inch trim of the pink all the way around the top of the bodice. So that will also need to be removed from the neckline as well. And then we'll make the V-neck on the front. So I'm going to start diving into these patterns. I know it sounds like a lot, but it will all make a lot more sense when you see me do it. And then now that I have a pattern made for Nadine, I can just start cranking things out, and I can make a million variations on that one pattern. So it's actually really nice that I have this. So now we can just start making things more quickly and more easily going forward. First things first, I'm going to cut out my skirt, and I'm going to fold the pattern piece in half because we're going to do a 50-50 split of the lime green and the hot pink. So I only need a half of the front and a half of the back. And I am just eyeballing the seam allowances. If you're newer to sewing and you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can go through and add them with disappearing ink. This is a stretchy fabric, so I feel comfortable just kind of eyeballing it. Now to cut the back pieces, I need to reduce the neckline by whatever width I choose for the trim, which I know I said 2 inches, but I actually ended up going with 1.5 inches. So I lowered the neckline down 1.5 inches and then cut that out. And then again, because I'm adding a seam allowance to put it in a zipper, I'm folding it in half and then adding seam allowance between the 2 pieces. And now moving on to the front bodice piece, I need to measure down from the front of the neckline to see where the bottom of the V-neck's going to go, and then I can just draw a line from that new bottom point of the V to the shoulder, and that will be my front adjustment, and then I can cut that on the fold. And last but not least, I luckily do not have to make a separate pattern piece for the little peplum on the dress. She actually gave me something that she already had that I'm converting into a little peplum piece. So this is just as simple as me cutting the length that I need from this little glittery piece, and then I just hand folded it into pleats to attach to the actual dress. And to sew the entire dress together, I did use a zigzag stitch. Again, this is a 4-way stretch material, and we want to maintain as much stretchiness as we possibly can. So anytime you're using stretch materials like this, you'll want to use a zigzag stitch. That way the seams can stretch and move with the garment. Okay, I did manage to do it. So we started on, well, I met up with her on Sunday to pick everything up, and today is Wednesday and we're done, and the event is on Saturday. So I'm really proud of myself that I was able to get this done so quickly. Hopefully everything made sense with how I altered the patterns. Pattern alteration, although it seems very intimidating, is honestly a lot more common sense than you would think it is. So try not to be too intimidated if you want to try something like this. That's one of my favorite things about sewing, is that the patterns can kind of lead you in a million different directions. And with sewing, it's kind of, you need to know the rules to break them. So once you kind of figure out how patterns work, it opens up a whole new world of creativity as far as like what you can and can't do. And now that I have a copy of that super simple dress, I now can make a million different variations on that. So the sky's the limit as far as like what I can do to alter that pattern. It just needs to be still a stretchy fabric. So that's the only limitation, is that that pattern would have to be used with stretch material. It could not be used with something that does not have any stretch. So that's my only limitation, but considering it's for a drag queen, 90% of the things they wear are stretchy. So that's a really nice thing to have in my back pocket for any other quick turnaround things in the future. I know this was a very quick and very casual video this time around. If you have any questions about what I did during this process, anything like that, I'm happy to answer them, and I will see y'all on the next one. Bye.